CSS concepts take time to sink in, and one of the most important concepts to understand is the order of precedence. In our earlier video of styling a basic HTML document of yet another full stack development course playlist on our channel, we noticed how order of precedence mattered from inline to internal and then external CSS styles. With the principle being the closer a style is applied to the HTML element, the higher the precedence of application. This even makes sense for sequence of order in a CSS file or internal style, where a style defined later has a higher precedence than the one defined near the top or earlier. A CSS file linked later in HTML file has a higher precedence than one linked earlier in the head section, and so forth. Closeness of style to element is both literal and metaphorical. As your web page or website goes more and more complex, things start to get fuzzy, and sometimes it is important to debug and figure out how styles are applied and being handled, as it is not straightforward anymore. I'm Ali from Learn Awesome, and in this video, we shall look at how it is done with the debugging tools at our disposal. But first, let's do some more styling than we did previously. We have restricted ourselves to color styling so far. Let's go beyond colors in our CSS styling and venture into font sizes. So let's start by applying a smaller font to our body element, and let's see what happens. So to change the font size of the text in the body element, the style is appropriately named as font size, and we can say it to be like 4 pixels. And you would notice the entire web page would practically shrink to a top left corner and is hardly readable anymore. So we can use the font size shortcuts instead of using this hard-coded, very precise one. So we can use, so there are shortcuts available. Like for example, if I do control space, it would give me a list of options. So let me choose X small instead of 4 pixels. And now the text size is smaller, but at least it's readable. So what is X small? Well, we kind of gave up on precise control via pixel values and allowed browser to decide on a smaller font size. They are just like those H1 to H6 headings. The browser chooses a smaller font size on its own, which is relatively smaller than the regular text size it was previously using. Again, this can change from browser to browser because each browser has the liberty to define its own X small, X large, etc. The important bit here is we just changed the body element, and since we had not customized any HTML element previously for fonts, the smaller font size was applied on everything from H1, H2 heading to paragraphs, regular text, pre-post, everything in the web document. But if you look closely, here's a mystery that still needs to be solved. How did heading H1 shrunk but still remain bigger than any other text in the document? After all, we tried to apply a fixed size font size on it. Why didn't it work? Clearly, it's bigger than 4 pixel or X small applied on other text elements. So the mystery can't be solved with live preview, and we need better tools. Alright, so that's our next topic. So step one, save your work in HTML and CSS files. Best to use file save all. That would save all open files. Now we need to open our file in Chrome browser. So the best way to do it is doing a right click on the HTML document and select Reveal in File Explorer, and then open that file in Chrome browser. Now in the Chrome browser, right click on the heading, and then from the pop-up menu, select entry called Inspect, which is the last heading. And this would open something called Chrome Developer Tools on the side. This is an extremely useful diagnostic and debugging tool built into Chrome browser for developers to get information and debug issues with the web page. We will spend a lot of time working with this tool later in our yet another full stack development series. For now, let's focus on what gets shown right now. So since you right click on the heading and then clicked inspect, the developer tool pop-up would show up with the HTML element selected and its properties showing up. So let me close this part, which is unnecessary. And these are all the settings So this is the heading, and you can see it's almost the entire web page being shown, and with the H1 being selected, and all properties or styles applied on the H1 are showing on this right side under the Styles tab. Okay, now focus your attention on this section and understand a few concepts. And please pay attention. So the top portion shows color red, and that is the style being applied on the element via our external CSS file, my first HTML CSS.css. The second portion from the source's user agent style sheet is the built-in style being applied by Chrome browser itself. The technical word for browser is user agent. So you can read it as Chrome built-in style sheet or user agent style sheet. Doesn't matter. What matters is that this list is the styles specified and applied by browser on any H1 element you add to your HTML file by default. This is the default presentation for HTML elements in Chrome browser. Let me go over the third section here and then come back to it. So the third section is the style that you applied on HTML element via the parent or body element, which includes font size X small or 4px previously. This style is also coming from my first HTML CSS.css, which we created. So being a smart person, you must be wondering why styles coming from a single source are not grouped together. Like this and this are separated by the browser style. And the only logical reason is the sections are not ordered or sorted by source, they are sorted by something else. And that something else is order of application or closeness of style to the element. The first empty section lists the styles if they were specified on the element itself, that is the inline styles. They would override any other style listed below and take the highest priority. The second section is the style applied directly on the H1 element in our style sheet. Since this is the next closest thing to an inline style, that appears second on our list and currently has higher priority since there is no inline style applied on H1 element. Next comes the style that the browser applies on the H1 element. And note with particular reference the font size 2em in that list, and we shall come to it in just a second. Note this is also directly applicable on H1 element but has a lower priority than your own style sheet. And finally, you see the inherited style, the one cascading down from its parent, the body element. And this has the lowest priority since it's the furthest from the applicable styles that we have seen so far. Now also note that font size and color are crossed out. This indicates that this style is not being applied on the element as it has been overridden by a style with the same name and with higher priority. If you see above, you see color is being overridden in second and font size being overridden in third section. But that still does not explain why heading is smaller than before but still larger than rest of the text. To solve that part of the mystery, we need to understand the definition of the unit of font size being applied by the browser, EM. EM creates a dynamic or computed font size, which means it is based on, relative to, or is multiple of some other font size. Why is it called EM? Well, historically, it was derived from width of the letter capital M in a given typeface. So it is basically M with two letters to be cool. That's all I know about it. Anyway, the important bit is that it is a multiple of font size that is currently applicable on the element. So even though the font size from body element is crossed out and overridden as 2em, which means 2 times, which means 2 times or 2x the current font size. The current font size is still the value coming from the body element. So if we set font size on body to be 4 pixels, the 4 pixel would be crossed out or overridden by this 2em value, but 2em would compute to be 2 times 4 pixel, that is 8 pixel. So if we change body font size to 5 pixel, H1 heading font size would compute to 10 pixels, multiple of 2. Alright, to see this in more clarity, let's go to the second tab up top, that is computed, right next to the style tab, and scroll until we find, and if you are following, if you find the font size. And here it is. And there's a little arrow by its side which you can use to expand, and it gives you some details on how the value was computed. So it shows value as 20 pixel, and the constituent variables are 2m from h1 coming from user agent style sheet, and x small coming from the body element in my first HTML CSS. So we can also deduce x small has a size of 10 pixel from that computation. That is why the web page is still readable compared to when we applied 4 pixel value, because x small translates to 10 pixel in numeric form. So how was your experience with styling and Chrome Developer Tools in this video? I hope you understood the concepts and would be able to make use of Chrome Developer Tools to debug styling issues with these going forward. If you like, please give a thumbs up and share the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.